education, miseducation, and knowledge of self. Welcome to the first segment of the first module of this work study course. The objective of this module is to give you the tools and the information that you need to identify and correct miseducation within yourself, to deconstruct that miseducation, and to rebuild your identity with right knowledge. Once you've completed this module, you'll be able to achieve the following objectives. Number 1, you'll be able to define education. Number 2, you'll be able to deconstruct the process of miseducation. And number 3, you'll be able to self-correct that miseducation with right knowledge. In Dr. Naim Akbar's book, Know Thyself, he writes the following. What distinguishes human life from all other animals on earth is the ability to acquire knowledge. Knowledge is the capacity to know oneself and have the ability to communicate that knowledge to others. Consciousness is the internal manifestation of that knowledge. Education comes from the Latin verb educare, which means to bring forth. And it's more than a process of teaching or imposing some ideas or habits. Education in its inception was understood as a process of harnessing the inner potential that was yet unexpressed and bringing it out into consciousness. The concept of equipping human beings with the consciousness of their true nature was an essential task every society provided. According to Dr. Naim Akbar, the first function of education is to provide identity to the students. European American education is a system that was established to provide a true education only to Americans of European descent, who were intended to remain the holders and developers of this society. This family is where miseducation begins. Miseducation begins at the level where a person is taught an alien identity and nothing about their true identity. They learn to see themselves as a player in someone else's story and not learn their own story. When white students read about the accomplishments of Newton, Shakespeare, Euclid, Joan of Arc, Galileo, Mozart, Queen Victoria, or Michelangelo, they are being invited to share in the legacy of their great predecessors. But what of the black student? The same information that gives inspiration, confidence, and a sense of superiority to white students becomes toxic to the black mind. When we're told that our history began when whites found us, or that our own people voluntarily sold us into slavery, or that we were civilized and set free by a white man named Lincoln, then we're left with an implied sense of worthlessness and a reliance on a white system of education, economics, and politics to have our needs met. So if we as students, with the intention of deconstructing our miseducation and reconstructing our true knowledge of self, consider the true definition of the word education and follow the teachings of Dr. Naim Akbar, we come to understand that education has 4 purposes. Purpose number 1, to cultivate a knowledge of self. Purpose number 2, to pass on the lessons learned from our ancestors of the past. Purpose number 3, to protect us or to immunize us against the mental, social, or intellectual illnesses of the past. And purpose number 4, to develop a shared vision for society. Education is known as one of the 9 areas of life. This is a concept that came from Dr. Frances Cress Welsing in her book, The ISIS Papers, and that concept was adapted from Dr. Neely Fuller's 9 areas of people activity. Education is also the foundation of one of the 5 elements of life, known as the academic element. The 5 elements of life make up everything you are, everything you were, and everything that you will be. Thus, in understanding the 9 areas of life and the 5 elements of life, and recognizing that we face 9 weapons of white supremacy, you as a student, in developing your knowledge of self, will be able to understand who you truly are, how you came to be, the world around you, and your place in that world. To summarize this segment, education comes from the Latin word educare, which means to draw out. Education is one of the 9 areas of life, and it is a part of one of the 5 elements of life, the academic element. Education has 4 purposes. Purpose number 1, cultivate a knowledge of self. Purpose number 2, to pass on the lessons of the past. Purpose number 3, to immunize the student against intellectual and social illnesses. And number 4, to develop a shared vision for the future of a society. Knowledge of self is 4 things: who you are, how you came to be, the world around you, and your place in that world. In the next segment, we'll do the knowledge on the 4 purposes of education, and we'll also change how you think about education by introducing you to a Kemetic concept known as Kefir. This will create a new, Black, conscious, holistic, and self-correcting approach to the process of training and indoctrination that we've experienced under the system of white supremacy.